Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency, March 11th, 2025 at 5:30, meeting to order. City Attorney, do we have a quorum? Thank you very much. And now we will hold a moment of silence. And now can you stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. City Clerk?
Individuals wishing to speak on agenda items must complete a sign-up card prior to the item being introduced. Sign-up cards are available on the table. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions and requests. No sign-up card is required. Citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on all agenda items. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to the CRA shall be placed in the box on the table.
Thank you, City Clerk. Executive Director?
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and CRA board members. We are on agenda item 8A, which is under new business. And that item is the internal pedestrian speed study conducted by Titusville Police Department. The City of Titusville Police Department and Code Enforcement worked together on an internal pedestrian and speeding study and will present their findings. Commander Wright and the Titusville Police Department is available for your comments and questions from the CRA board. And Commander Wright, all yours.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon. So our department participated in a study going back through January through February, and this presentation, if I can get through it, and then I'll open it up to any questions at the end. So we conducted multiple studies in person and with some of our data collectors. The first location we looked at was Julia Street and South Hopkins, and we looked at the historical crash data for that intersection. As you see, there was over a 13-year period. I say only, but crashes are unacceptable in our realm, but there was only 37 during that time frame. 33 without injuries, 4 with injuries, and 0 pedestrian crashes during that time. So a very low number for a 13-year study of crash data. We then pulled the same numbers for Julia Street and South Washington Avenue. Our crash numbers increased from 37 to 55 for this intersection, 41 without injuries, 14 with injuries, but to note there was 2 that involved pedestrians. One of them was due to a pedestrian under the influence, so at fault. The other one was both the combination of a motorist violation and a pedestrian violation. Essentially, pedestrian didn't make sure they were clear to walk and the motorist didn't stop for them. We then went into 2 days worth of visual studies doing counts of vehicles and violations for the Julia and Washington area, specifically the Rapid Rectangular Flashing Beacon, or otherwise known as RRFB. And the 4 statutes that we focused on were motorist violations and pedestrian violations. So just to touch on them real quick, one of them being pedestrian crossing anywhere where there's not, or crossing where a marked crosswalk is but not using the crosswalk. That's a pedestrian violation. Failure to yield the right-of-way to the pedestrian, so a motorist violation. Failure to stop for a stop sign, which a lot of people do know about. And the other one is we observed drivers stopping in the crosswalk. So that's a violation for the motorist as well. So those are the 4 that we observed during our counts. We conducted January 23rd and January 24th 2-hour windows in the morning and 2-hour windows in the evening. On the 23rd, a total of 1,053 cars were counted and only 75 violations. So a low number of violations that were a mixture of pedestrian and motorist violations. And you'll see on the 24th, the vehicle count was 837. What was interesting about the 23rd was there was 3 buses that arrived to the Welcome Center, unloaded a bunch of bikes, and they were here to ride the trails, the Rail to Trail project. And on the same dates, we conducted 2 more studies in the evening hours. The number's kind of hard to see, but I think it's 1,738. 1,378 on the 23rd between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. with 2.2% of violations, and 1,617 on the 24th. Again, 2% of violations out of the cars we counted. So at that specific area, not too terribly of a big problem for violations, although there are violations noted. We then deployed our traffic data collector at Washington and Stephen House Way. The intent was a 7-day study, but during that time we had the Arctic blast, cold weather, rain, elements, and it just ultimately drained our battery. So we only got about 24 hours during that study. During that count, there was 9,309 vehicles in that 24-hour period. 46% were under 30 miles an hour. 54% were in that 31 to 39 window, and only 5% were 10 over. We redeployed it again to get a true 7-day study, so February 8th to February 15th, again, same location, Washington and Stephen House Way, northbound. This time we counted 56,612 vehicles, and the numbers are very similar to that 1-day, 24-hour period. 45% traveling under the speed limit, 55% between 31 and 39, 5% 10 miles an hour and over, so 40 and above. And then the biggest thing to notice is 26 to 35 mile an hour, there was 62% of those numbers were traveling in that range. So something we like to do at the Titusville Police Department before we jump right into enforcement is do education, whether it's education in person or social media. So this is just an example of one of the posts we did where we grabbed the information on the RRFVs for pedestrians and motorists, how to use them, how to approach them, where they need to be stopping, when they can walk. So that was part one of our education campaign. And part two was a video we put together.
Hey Titusville, I'm Officer Rasmussen with the Titusville Police Department Traffic Unit. Your Titusville Police Department is going to be participating in Operation Best Foot Forward. We're here at the intersection of Julia Street and US 1 in our downtown area. We're trying to make sure that motorists come to a complete stop and yield the right-of-way to pedestrians when they're crossing a marked crosswalk with signage. When drivers approach the intersection and the crosswalk and they see yellow lights, please make sure you come to a stop and allow for the pedestrian to cross the roadway. With that being said, Titusville, if you do get caught, it's a $169 fine and possibly 3 points in your license. So do me a favor, Titusville. Walk safe and drive safe.
So again, we like to educate before we go into enforcement. And you'll see on that video, we partnered with the Bike Walk Central Florida group for Operation Best Foot Forward. We had plans to be there 4 days, but due to other things happening in the city, we had to redirect some of our personnel. So we ended up participating in 2 days worth of education and enforcement on February 11th and February 12th between the 3 to 5 o'clock window. And the image you're seeing is how we conducted that with a decoy officer to be in the crosswalk, the spotter, and then officers that were down the way to conduct the stops. So on the 11th, during that 2-hour window, there was a total of 11 violations during that time, 10 written warnings and 1 verbal. And on the 12th, a little bit lower numbers, 8 violations, 5 written warnings, 3 verbal, and one of those stops was a criminal citation for the driver driving with a suspended license with knowledge. That is one of our officers there in the crosswalk acting as the decoy. So looking back at our data, what does it tell us? The crosswalk violations at the area specifically of Washington and Julia, where the rapid rectangular flashing beacon is, less violations noticed just because it's more visible. The flashing lights gets drivers' attention. We noticed more violations were occurring at the other 2 crosswalks that didn't have the RRFB, which is Washington and Palmetto and Washington and Julia. And our speed violation, although there were some traveling in that 31 to 39 window, wasn't a high percentage of cars violating the speeds. And then this is just our fine chart to put that information out there. Yes, we can stop a car for going 32 and a 30, but we can't issue any citations until they reach that 6-mile-an-hour threshold. And most of the time, we're focusing between 9 and 10 anyways, just for that error rate. So areas of concern that we noticed, specifically talking from Washington Avenue, from South Street through Julia, is we noticed there's only one state law sign that tells drivers that they need to stop for pedestrians. And then as we looked at our other crosswalks, we noticed they were all different in nature with signage or markings in the roadway. So we're looking right now at Washington and Palmetto. There's no RRFB, and it's simply just a crosswalk with no state law signage saying motorists stop here for pedestrians. If we move up one more block, it's different looking, where it does have the stop here for pedestrians with a stop bar in the roadway. That's just a guide and a reference for where the motorist should stop when pedestrians are there. So just between the one block difference, those two are different in their appearance. Our recommendations is to consider adding the state law signage throughout the downtown district, adding the stop here signage to each of the properly marked locations. And then to take it one step further for true pedestrian visibility and motorist attention, consider modeling the downtown CRA district and the crosswalk similar to what is seen in the Indian Harbor Beach and Satellite Beach area, where it's hard to tell in this picture, but you can see the two red circles downrange. I think everyone's been down there. It's about every quarter mile is the RRFBs, and it's very visible, catches the driver's attention. And again, note, Titusville Police Department will continue to make traffic safety improvement through education and enforcement in the downtown area. Recently, we were speaking to Ms. Williams about restructuring the CRA details where we can add more officers together working enforcement and education campaigns at the same time versus spreading them out for more enforcement actions happening. So, any questions?
Thank you, Commander Wright. Member Nelson?
So question, I would think that the decoy and getting stopped would really, let me say for the younger generation, which is anybody under Herman's age. Sorry, Herman.
Thank you.
I would think that would have an impact. I love the signs, and I'm not sure what we need to do to get more signs down there, but I think that would also have an impact, because they're going to get on Facebook and, gee, guess what happened to me? I got to stop downtown. I did blah, blah, blah. And that would even get the word out. What do you think? Which is more effective?
Doing more decoy details?
Yeah.
Yes, then that's kind of where our thought was when we were talking about the CRA district and the outside employment opportunities, increasing our manpower in addition to our current patrol staffing and traffic officers that are working it, supplementing it with more officers when we can.
Okay.
Yes,
I would think that would be great. Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Member Nelson. Member Ball?
First, I'd like to thank you and thank Titusville Police Department for doing this. In many ways, I think it kind of validates or goes into more depth than what FDOT did on there. But it's kind of remarkable, the outcome, even for their short, showed about more than 50% of the traffic was exceeding the 30 miles an hour.
Right.
So I get it that there's a range in there that the police are going to consider just moderately over the speed limit to where you wouldn't cite, or you might give a warning, that kind of thing. So would it be your conclusion out of all this data that we don't have a speeding problem in the CRA?
It's not egregious is what I would say. Yes, 39 and a 30 is fast for the downtown area. Me personally, if a car's doing 27 and a 25, that's a neighborhood. Kids are more out, apt to be out and about. But it's not egregious. There is speed problems and there's pedestrian concerns and pedestrian safety, yes.
Is there any reason to believe that the data would be different if you went into the evening hours, I mean, beyond 6 o'clock, like when things are kind of hopping in the downtown area?
So we can, that device is an older model, and it doesn't really give breakdowns of actual hours when the cars are going through and speeding. It just gives us that range. But we could be strategic, and if you're wanting more information on 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., we can turn it on, turn it off during those hours to get a better example of the evening hours. There is less traffic at nighttime, so more cause for drivers to possibly drive faster, easier. But
And where was the data collection point? Where did you get the,
with the traffic data
Yeah.
collectors, so that was installed right at Washington and Stephen House Way,
okay.
just south of that crosswalk.
I think your recommendations, I'll just say to the group here, I think they align with some of the ones I would make that I saw when I went around looking. I noticed that the signage, there's a disparity, or at least inconsistency on some of the signs are bright yellow. It looks like that's the FDOT standard now. The rest that have been there for a while are orange, or deeper. In my opinion, is that the bright yellow is much easier to see. And if you look at some of the areas of the city, I've been paying a lot more attention to it, like on Country Club, in the crosswalks that are not at a signalized intersection on Country Club and on Harrison as well. They're very well marked. I mean, you have a warning, pedestrian crossing ahead, then you have the stop here, and you have the pedestrian sign, and it's marked. So, and they're the bright yellow signs. So I think I would like to see us, further consider that, unless you guys think orange is a better color. I mean, for drawing attention.
No, I believe it's that yellow, that new color is that high visibility yellow. It's more of an attention grabber, and I'm sure it's the phase in trying to get everything caught up to those new colors.
Was it my understanding FDOT would either install new signage, or maybe I didn't quite read that it was replace existing signage with more visible signage?
That I would need to have to discuss with FDOT, Michael Sanders, and basically the next step would be a formal request, if you wish, if this is what the board desires, to make a formal request of FDOT to do, how did he call it? He said to process an evaluation of the RRFB installation, and are we agreeing at Palmetto and Julia, based upon the study, and other signing improvements along the corridor? And we can give them the recommendations, if that is what the board desires.
Yes, so, Commander, you guys would recommend a flashing beacon at Pine?
Yes, just because it increases the visibility, it's a attention grabber for the drivers, where they're right now, you're counting on them to see the pedestrian standing there trying to cross.
I had picked up on that one too, but I also think I suggested we look for an evaluation for one of those at the senior tower. If it's well marked, the pedestrian crossing, but if you look at the pedestrians that are going across that, some of them are in wheelchairs, some of them are on walkers. And I just think that might be worth taking a look at. I really don't know what FDOT's criteria is to say, yep, you qualify, you can get one, or nope, sorry, you don't meet our standard, But I would, and I already suggested to staff maybe a couple of other locations I think might be worth taking a look at. Pine on the other side, on southbound, because you get a lot of potentially pedestrian traffic going across there too. I'm concerned about the city workers, but at two locations, really, Pine and Palmetto, you have 3 unsignalized intersections between South Street and Main. So they're all potentially very high traffic at some times during the day, and maybe many times during the day. The other thing that I had noted and put in my notes that I shared with staff, and I think they shared with you, was and Member Nelson, last time we talked about this, said maybe some signage, your speed, this is your speed. There's one right behind City Hall on Indian River Avenue, and I think I would be more concerned about seeing some of those on on the main pairs. Speed might not be the problem. I mean, I think there was a sense, I know I had it, and many people I've talked to believe that 30 miles, even 30 miles an hour, and certainly if half the cars are going more than that, if you're sitting down at the hardware store and you're watching these cars come zooming by, it's a little nerve-wracking to think, what would happen if a car lost control. So we may not be able to get FDOT to change the speed limit. One other suggestion was maybe to consider going further south and begin to get a little bit more motorists a little bit more used to the idea that they're entering a section of roadway that's 30 miles an hour. But somebody can get hit, a pedestrian can get hit at 29 miles an hour, and it's going to do as much damage to them as if it was at 33. I mean, we were worried about the high end of the violations. And again, we're trying to be, from my sense, proactive and get out in front of the accidents instead of reacting to, okay, we've had a couple of tragedies, now what are we going to do about it?
Member Ball, can I ask a question? Do I hear a motion in there for our board to request FDOT to do?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Well, we'll make the motion first.
Okay.
Let's see. Well, we can go ahead with that one. I may have one other comment for you guys.
So the motion would be,
Okay, the motion I'd like to make is for FDOT to do the evaluation for the rapid, whatever the acronym is, the rapid flashing things at Pine Street, as recommended by TPD. I'd like to add also evaluation at the Senior Tower crossing and at Pine on southbound Washington, southbound US 1.
Palmetto. I
Pardon me?
think what Sue had talked about was Palmetto and Julia. Also, our FB, evaluate for them.
On the other side, on the southbound?
I believe that was it.
That's on the north,
Okay.
where the study was done.
My thought in the motion is to prioritize the intersections that are not signalized, because the signalized intersections have a crosswalk that the pedestrians can push a button and they're going to get across. They're going to give it, okay, it's okay to walk. The unsignalized ones are the ones that I think, need to be concerned about. If we're able to grow the number of these flashing beacons that are downtown, it's going to maybe increase awareness. So I do think that you're correct in that. So I'd make the motion is to have FDOT do those evaluations, let's say at Pine on both pairs,
Okay.
Palmetto on both pairs, and at the Senior Tower.
And then the other suggestion of Sue was to ask FDOT to look at additional signage.
I'm sorry,
The other suggestion Sue had was to have FDOT look at additional signage downtown.
additional signage and a consistency of the color code
Right.
for all the pedestrian crossing to be that bright yellow, which would require them to change out some of them.
So I would second that.
All right, so I have a motion from Member Ball about us sending a letter to FDOT requesting that they add in some additional beacons at those streets that were mentioned and, making some consistency. And I have a second by Member Nelson. Is there any cards on the matter?
Mr. Johnson had a card for anything new.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Member Ball?
Just a couple of more comments. So I do want to commend you guys on the recommendations you made. I think we should pursue all of those. And the one regarding Indy Atlantic, I think that's a great model. That would require FDOT attention as well, right? Is that something we can do on our own?
So interesting story is the mayor of Cocoa Beach does not want the raised crosswalks down on A1A. And at our TPO meeting, I mentioned to the vice mayor that, you know, we'll probably take them, but I don't think they'll do that. So, but we're trying.
So just final comments. I don't think I have another motion here, is to applaud the efforts of TPD. It's clearly a concern for us in the high traffic area of the downtown. Whether speeding is really the culprit or just increased awareness on both sides for pedestrians and motorists. So the public service campaign was a good one, and hopefully we can kind of keep some of that up.
Thank you, Member Ball.
Thank you.
Member Nelson?
One additional comment, and I think it's something that we can think about as we go along and maybe consider it for the next budget. I was thinking, you know, one of the things that always concerns me is there are a lot of people out on the sidewalks downtown. And to me, that's a hazard. Have we ever thought about using bollards to stop a vehicle before they hit somebody?
Most of your ballards are used to block off parking lots. I haven't really seen them situated along the side of the roads where the sidewalks are. Most of the time where I do see them is to block off a parking lot to prevent access.
Right. But there's no reason that it wouldn't, I don't think. I think it'd work.
They could be strategically or proactively added, yes.
Yeah.
I
So
think-
maybe that's something we need to think about.
I think it just depends on what utilities are in those areas.
No,
And
yeah.
the easements, but I mean, I think it's a good suggestion. Anything else? Seeing none, thank you. Oh,
And sorry, if I can add clarification to Member Ball, unless I missed it on the Hopkins side, the only crosswalks are where the lighted intersections are. So at Julia and Main, I did not see any other pedestrian crosswalks on the Hopkins side going southbound.
They're not marked, but you have unsignalized intersections at Palmetto and Pine, and every reason to consider that they should be at least marked.
Correct.
And then potentially, you know, the flashing beacons.
Correct.
You know, if we just educate the people of Titusville and visitors and people that are downtown that, you know, this is kind of a unique area. I mean, there's a heightened visibility to the need for pedestrian safety and the need to enforce state law.
thank you, Member Ball. Thank you, Commander Wright, Executive Director.
On to item 8B, which is the FY24 City of Titusville Community Redevelopment Agency Annual Report, which is included in your packet. Staff is recommending that you approve the FY24 Annual Report for the City of Titusville's Community Redevelopment Agency and approve the transmittal of the report to the CRE's creating municipality, the City of Titusville, to meet the 31 March deadline. After the financial audit, information has been completed to be added to the report and posted as required by Florida statute, and courtesy copies will be sent to the taxing authority in the county.
City Clerk, are there any cards?
There's no cards.
We need a motion to,
Yeah. Move to approve fiscal year 2024 annual report for the City of Titusville Community Redevelopment Agency and approve the transmittal of the report to the CRA's creating municipality, the City of Titusville.
Second?
moved and second. Are you ready for questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Could you please wait on the vote till the mayor gets back? Yes.
Okay. Even if it's 4?
Sir?
Even if he opposes it, would be 4-1.
I understand, but he was here for the meeting. I think he's just stepped out temporarily.
He did and passed me the
Yeah,
I
well,
would just suggest if he's going back, let's.
Okay. all right. The attorney doesn't trust me to run the meeting. I know, and look what I did with it.
Could,
All right, do I have a motion?
could we repeat the motion in the second so the mayor hears it?
I didn't hear you, city attorney. All right, can
I
I,
asked that they repeat the motion in the second so you hear it before we vote.
thank you. Can I have city clerk, can you give me a recall?
Member Nelson made the motion and Member Ball made the second.
On what?
It was a motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 annual report for the city of Titusville, CRA,
Thank you.
and approve the transmittal to the creating municipality.
Awesome. All right, any further discussion?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Any cards on the matter?
No cards.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Executive Director?
On to item 8C, which is the FY 2026 Community Redevelopment Agency preliminary budget. Staff is in the process of preparing the FY 26 budget for the CRA. Direction is being requested from the board regarding the budget. Last year's projects involved new sidewalks, Broad Street parking, impervious, Indian River bioswales, LID project, Trail Town amenities such as shade structures, new banners, new directory kiosks, parking signs, etc., and building renovations. Sue's here to go through this prelim budget with you.
As you can see, we're basing the numbers of the TIF on last year's numbers. It's very conservative. For that reason, we don't have the new numbers yet. That is why. But we wanted to get this in front of you. It is very preliminary because the topic of discussion has been safety, pedestrian safety and road safety. That's why you see the majority of the funds we budgeted, and we needed a starting point. This is just for you to start the conversation. So the majority of it available is $267,127 in pedestrian crosswalks, signage, and safety. Then the Broad Street parking, when we discussed that, and how much was funded last year? I believe 150 for the Broad Street parking. And there was consensus among the board to make that impervious, if possible. The approximate amount to make that impervious when we do that project, which should be this fiscal year, would be an additional $100,000. The building grant renovations, I estimated 110. Well, this last fiscal year, we did over 127,000. So that's just budget numbers. Trail Town amenities budgeted 20,000. With the SEPTED reports that we did receive for the Welcome Center and the Commons, it would cost more than that because we need security cameras and lighting and other wayfinding signs. However, there are some funds available on Trail Town amenities to balance that out. And then I put some public art in there because when I was working on that annual report, one of the state legislations is I need to report anything that we haven't addressed yet that's in the CRA plan, and that was something that really has not been addressed. So that's why I budgeted a small amount of money there to see if we could research that, if there's an appetite for it. Open here for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Sue. Member Ball?
With all the discussion we've been having about pedestrian safety and working with FDOT and such, I did go back and look at our redevelopment plan update in 2022. And we have two goals that address that, but in specific, goal 7.1 and a number of policies associated with it is called safe. 7.1 is safe community initiatives. So I was just wondering if we should consider having a line item in our budget that's a recurring line item for safe community initiatives. And that could include, crosswalk improvements, cameras, improved lighting, signage, awareness. I mean, there's a lot that could fall under that umbrella, but since we we have Trail Town amenities. Safety doesn't really fall under Trail Town amenities. So that was my only thought, and I would, maybe leave it up to staff to plug a placeholder number in there. It doesn't, in my view, have to be a big number. I'd like to just tie something in our budget back to that particular goal, safe community initiatives.
Thank you, Member Ball. Member Moscoso?
Do we have anything in our budget for maintenance?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So I am always amazed with how clean our downtown is. Every time I drive through, I want to replicate that throughout the whole city. But during the Star Party, which was excellent, and I'll continue to praise the Star Party, there was a scavenger hunt, and it went from Space View, which is a county park, across the bridge, to Veterans, to Scobie. And I was talking with the city manager today about, okay, who's in charge of maintaining those areas? Well, some of those are county maintained, and so I think it would be good for us. I think our mayor is on the Parks and Rec Board. Is that correct?
Community liaison.
Community liaison. So to get in touch with our Parks Department and just see about that maintenance. But one thing I did talk about that we could do is Scobie Park. If you've been down there, that was one of the locations it took you to. And I think just the way it is, there's a lot of trash that gathers. Our city manager told me that it gets mowed every 8 days and the trash should be picked up from there. I don't know if we need to do it more often or what needs to be done, but it is a beautiful spot for people to go and watch the launches. But I was honestly kind of surprised when I went to that spot with my daughter and there was trash everywhere. And I know part of that. So I don't know if we can extend some of that maintenance over to Scobie Park and the shoreline, or if we would need additional revenue to hire someone to do that, but that would just be a suggestion if we could have that, because they've done such a great job in downtown, if we could just extend it a little bit more to the riverfront.
Thank you, Member Moscoso. Member Nelson?
I was just going to say, last time I went through Space View Park, it looked pretty run down, pretty beat up. Is there something we can do to sort of brighten it up, refresh it?
I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
So,
I'm talking about the monuments
Yep,
now.
yep, exactly. Unfortunately, the monuments are a little worse for wear, but when they put in the monuments, there was really no memo of understanding between whose responsibility it is to keep them up. So, the Space Museum thinks it's the city's, even though it's a city park, maintained by Parks and Rec. And correct me if I'm wrong, Executive Director, but we don't have any agreement to maintain those monuments, and it's a real tragedy. So
Yeah.
that is something that needs to be worked out, and we need to find a solution to. But I'll just wanted to give you the
Yeah.
kind of the history of what had happened there.
I have been under the impression, city manager can correct me, that the park was turned over with the monuments to the city, and the county has a maintenance agreement.
County
don't-
maintains the park, that's correct.
Okay, but would that include the monuments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Not according to them.
okay. So that needs to be worked out one way or the other. So you have broad shoulders.
I know that the CRA, we did additional funding when the Space View Pier was completed because we recognized that the use there's a lot more use now. So we did some more plantings there. Unfortunately, because the maintenance is the county, those weren't kept up. So I'm not sure exactly where to go from here. That's a discussion that staff can have. I know there's been discussion with the county, and that can continue for those parks.
Well, we have a new person in charge of Parks and Rec. So I'm thinking maybe it's a good time to have that discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to answer Megan's question earlier about my role as a liaison to that board, a few years back, I think y'all heard me talk about it last year, the county decided that the advisory boards only meet quarterly. So therefore, I mean, again, met in January, but I won't see them again till April. But I do have an open dialogue with the staff there so that we are having these conversations. And I believe hopefully later during petitions and requests, you'll hear from some of the fruit of that labor. So, Member Stokel.
Yes. I have a couple questions. One, are we able to roll money over that we don't spend in case we wanted to save some money for a bigger project?
Yes, there will be some rollover funds.
Okay. And then I know you mentioned our plan. Are we allowed to change our plan? Like if there is public art in there and maybe we don't want to do that right now or we have more pressing priorities?
You don't have to do the public art right now. I just wanted to bring that to your attention because the public art goal is a large one. It also relates to the expansion of the theater and things of that nature, which I know is a goal of the board. So we can keep it there. It's just my job to bring it to your attention that we haven't addressed it yet. That's all.
Okay. And then how detailed do we need to be at this point with what you presented? And I ask that to say, is it appropriate for us to maybe say miscellaneous for the time being as the downtown merchants are getting together? And I guess my thing is I'd like to see what that group comes up with and how we can best support them with what we're allowed to do. So if they are mentioning things like in the past it's been, hey, we have a restaurant and the trash keeps overflowing, can they come pick up more frequently? If we're having issues, as you guys mentioned, with the parks, if they are noticing safety concerns, I kind of would like to hear their feedback on how best we can support them, because ultimately what I would like to have is safety there and more people in our downtown. And so anything that we can do with that, I'm all for. So I think the preliminary budget looks okay to me. I just would say like the Trail Town and public art, maybe if it was more like miscellaneous or it's a little bit looser, depending on, as the merchants are meeting, what we can do.
Absolutely understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Stokel. Member Moscoso.
Speaking of art, we had in our natural resource public engagement, you might have seen one of the comments there was a muralist who offered to do a mural for downtown. I'm hoping it's the same guy who has done a lot of them because I feel like that does draw people downtown. But he wanted to do, or he or she, I didn't have the name, an emphasis on kind of ways to preserve our environment. And so I don't know if that's something, if you have this, if we use some of this art budget, that would be something. I mean, he offered to do it for free, but it could include paint. I don't know. And I'm not sure where that would go if we even have space. But I think that would be a beautiful addition to all the great murals we have down there already. And especially if it has kind of an emphasis on protecting our Indian River Lagoon.
Great idea. And that is sort of where staff was thinking, because it's a low amount, was thinking different ways to encourage murals. And then I've looked at some other CRAs and would bring that back, but just wanted to get an understanding and a feel for the appetite of this board.
Have you guys seen the black and white venue down there? Yeah, it's a nice mural. Any other comments? Seeing none? Thank you, Ms. Sue, Executive Director.
On to our last agenda item. It's the purchase and replacement of the shade structures. Staff recommends to the CRA that you recommend to the City Council to authorize the purchase of the fabric replacement for the shade structures in both Julia and Evans courts in the amount not to exceed $82,481.50 from REP Services Incorporated of Longwood, Florida, the original equipment manufacturer.
Thank you. Any discussion? All righty. City Clerk, any cards on this item?
No cards.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Move to authorize the purchase of OEM fabric replacement for the shade structures in Julia and Evans Court in the amount not to exceed $82,481.50.
Can I have you to add, recommend to City Council to approve?
recommend to city council, excuse me.
Got to recommend it for the later meeting. I have a motion. Any seconds?
Second.
I have a second by Vice Mayor Cole. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
The purchase?
Probably 8 to 12 weeks. But we can, once we place the order, we'll know better.
Probably depends on how quickly we can get city council to approve it. All right. All right. Any petitions and requests from the public? Mr. Johnson.
Okay, hand up, please. I'm Stan Johnson, professional engineer. I'm looking for recognition as a professional engineer that is licensed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And in there's a number of issues that I've brought to your attention. For example, the sewage spill. I've claimed that this sewage spill is dangerous, it's illegal, and the spraying of women and children with the sewage spray from leaving the fountains turned on. So Mr. Cook is here, and it appears that he disagrees with me by his silence, but as far as I can see, it's very dangerous, and your unwritten policy has continued for, over about 3 or 4 years, that Mrs. Nelson has explained. And so it's a dangerous situation, which I was hoping to bring up in the item regarding your budget and your safety, but my card wasn't called at that time. But anyhow, I'm concerned about what you're doing, because as far as I can see, it's illegal, it's dangerous, and you're responsible and you're liable, and you're crazy. You're crazy to let it continue. And except for 2 people, Mrs. Moscoso and Mr. Connors, who are new, but you can't be out of your minds to allow this to continue. City of Titusville is the only city in the whole world that deliberately sprays women, children, babies, public with sewage. Only city in the world. And you're very comfortable with it, which I can't understand. I can't understand. Here I am with a license to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I'm reporting your engineers and so forth to the Florida Board of Professional Engineers on this matter. I'm not sure what they'll do. But if I could report you, I could. In fact, I've asked the police officer, the Titusville Police Department, to report you to the state attorney. He won't do it. In other words, you're breaking the law. You're breaking the law seriously. And this is something you've seen many times. It talks about complaints made to the city of Titusville regarding nausea, headaches, diarrhea, vomiting, and so forth, brain fog. And what have you done? You've ignored them. You've ignored them. So your punishment is due, as far as I'm concerned. So expect some changes. And I'm reporting your professional engineers, whether it'll be recognized or not by the board. So I would like your response. Best wishes, especially you, Dr. Aker. You're a doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else for petitions and requests for the CRA? Yes, ma'am. Can you give me your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Lisa Mosier, 525 Indian River Avenue. I was watching online. I just live behind us now. One thing, when you were talking about the maintenance downtown, which it does look really good, pressure washing the sidewalks. Is there any way to get, like, Keep Our Beautiful, the merchants, the property owners, and the city to do like a major, let's clean the sidewalks, let's do the plants, and get it looking good? If you look at City Hall at the front, pressure wash there, but when I walk up this way, you can tell where it stops. So just a suggestion.
Thank you very much.
Tony Schiffela, the historic Norwood House over on Tropic Street. I've spoken to this group before, and I'm going to speak to you again about the same thing because now there's even more danger. You get the minutes from the Historic Preservation Board, and I am on the Historic Preservation Board. And at the last meeting, we got our budget, and there was a $260 item for a discussion with SpaceX and the city wanting to be a Section 106 participant. I don't know if any of you read the results of that $260 conversation, but it's not really very promising for the city of Titusville, the historic buildings, the masonry buildings, the older glass windows and things when Starship comes to town. So I just wanted to say again about the trains. I know you can't do anything about it. I just want to point out that the trains are getting longer, heavier, and more frequent. And when they come by, I don't know how it is with your historic district downtown because I haven't been in any of those buildings when the trains go by. But in my house, 4 or 5 blocks away, everything shakes and rattles, and I worry about the picture hanging on the wall over my bed falling off the wall. And over the years, the house had been totally refurbished when I moved in, and I've been here now, you know how long I've been in town, because I'm here all the time. The paint has cracked, the boards have moved apart, things have shaken loose from the trains. I know there's nothing we can do about it, but now the Starship is coming to town, and I just want to be Henny Penny. The sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Thank you, Ms. Shiflett. Anybody else for petitions and requests of the CRA Board? Mr. Arnell?
Anel Sanchez, 112 Julia Street. Just wanted to give a little education. I don't work for SpaceX, but there is extensive research that is done when rockets are launched, and there are suppression forms with water and other things that stop where all of our windows would bust out and all that stuff. So I just want to make sure that when we speak of SpaceX, there is millions upon millions of dollars of research that was done to make sure that our residents are not affected. Also, to the officer that spoke earlier, I don't remember his name.
Commander Wright.
Commander, wanted to say thank you for the study. I live in downtown. We see a lot of traffic, a lot of speeders, so highly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Anybody else for petitions and requests of the CRA Board? All right, seeing none. Executive Director.
The last item is information item from the Executive Director's report, subject to your question. There's no action items on that one.
Members, any questions of the Executive Director? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned. See you at 6:30.